Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Covenant Cast. I'm Zach.
And I'm Steven.
And I'm Jonathan.
And today, we recap Worlds. All right, well, what have you guys been up to this week? Side note, I know, because I was with you the entire time.
We were at Worlds. Yeah, that was it.
We were at Worlds. And then we weren't.
It was a whole week, though.
But mostly we were at Worlds.
Anything besides Worlds happening on your radars?
I mean, for me, I'm going to be moving into my house
That's next week.
next week. So I've been packing up everything this week.
There you
And I'm
go.
really excited about having one house to live in.
That's
Let me
good.
tell you. It's
Well, many
one's
millionaires would beg to differ.
Also, many non-millionaires would be glad to have one place.
This
to
is
live.
very true. Yeah, that's very true. I am. I'm still ready to get out of it. It's a rental house. I'm done with that stuff, man.
Oh,
I'm
man.
so ready to be done with just the idea that I can't do anything without someone else's permission. That eats me alive. Because it's a rental house. It's like I want to fix this, and it's like, well, you gotta call your landlady.
Yeah, you're the one that had that like crazy air conditioning. You had to like
had
stand
a lot
on
of
one
crazy
leg and
things.
flip a switch and
Yeah.
hope it comes on.
Is there a landlord that fixes anything properly?
Never met one.
The one we had in Claremore,
He was good.
he was good. Although he waited until we left to repaint and reshingle the entire house. But hey,
That's you do that in between. You don't do that in the
He
middle.
wasn't bad. I mean, he had like a handyman
Yeah.
officially that he would just send over, which I think is the way to do it.
yeah.
But everyone else, Colby told me a story of there was a hole in the side of the house. And
I remember
but he shows up and he's been calling for a couple of weeks. And a landlord is there shoving an ice chest into the hole and duct taping it over the thing.
That's obnoxious.
I know, that's a true life kind of thing.
That's
And
that's how some people deck build.
you know what his response to that was?
What?
So is this how we're going to handle this?
That's Colby's response to the landlord. Yeah, of course. Is this really your answer? If,
Always worth asking,
if so,
Is
here's
this how we're
my
gonna handle
notice.
The answer is
See you
yes.
next time.
Spoiler alert.
You have anything else going on this week, or are you just kind of
No,
cruising off the world's flames?
still kind of glowing from the Mythos boards.
Yeah,
moving
that was
so
a great
quickly.
thing.
That was amazing. Very cool. A nice little pre-worlds kind of, hey.
We made a good call.
Yeah, people are into the thing that you decided to do. So that's
Always
always
cool
nice.
when that happens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a random side note, I guess the only thing that really happened to me is John Rhys Davies stopped by the store.
That's right.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
the actor that plays Gimli in Lord of the Rings, as well as various other things that people have childhood memories attached to.
Yeah.
And man, he was just a swell guy.
Swell guy? That's awesome.
He was hilarious, and he took time. He stopped by. He's here for about an hour and just talked to everyone. They went through, got some autographs, pictures with some kids, and people were just very
Nice.
excited. And he was just awesome. So
That's
it was
excellent.
random and cool, and we appreciate having him. So
Yeah, the
That's
pictures
great.
that I saw, I wasn't able to make it, but the pictures that I saw, he seemed to be really into just talking with the kids and talking with everybody and making sure everybody had time, which is awesome.
Yeah, that was. It,
How do they do the stuff in the movies? How do they make him look so short?
yeah, that is true. He's like 6'1".
Movie magic.
So a couple of questions is one, is it just impossible to find somebody in that role that's shorter than 6'1"?
Potentially.
Is
mean-
he that good? Which I would
he's,
believe.
He's kind of a known actor, and he also has even in person, it's really funny to have him in real life. But his voice
Yeah.
and
It's just perfect,
his
right?
laugh is it's just
Dwarven.
it's dwarven. I mean, it's very obvious.
That's so cool.
And they
I
already
love that.
with the hobbits in that movie, Elijah Wood Frodo is I think 6 feet tall.
Yeah, so-
and he looks like a small child on
So
that.
how though?
There
Somebody-
is some very good videos on YouTube and
Yeah,
behind the
they
scenes
talk
stuff that
about
tells you
this.
how- A lot of it's camera angles, because if you have a single person in a shot, you just shoot one person from here and shoot one person from there, and the
And then
viewer's
the
mind is the
distance
same.
between the actors.
That's so crazy.
Some weird.
Yes,
movie
they
magic.
light it to where it looks like they're in the same plane, but they're actually in different planes.
Isn't that crazy?
It's I just can't believe anything anymore.
you can't movie magic.
You can't.
Well,
But the
it
great-
extends to reality magic, right? What am I missing that's just a total illusion?
Mm-hmm. That's actually
Or
one
what
of
is
the,
just your perception?
Due to lighting, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Is Ben
one of the
even
things
over
that
there?
I love about filming.
I can't prove it.
It's not.
It's all just light. It's all just light bouncing off atoms, right?
Well,
That's how physics
I'm
works.
not going to go down there.
No,
All right,
Ben.
let's get
Hashtag ask
on
Ben.
to Worlds. So before, I do want to hit each game and kind of talk about what was going on, the vibe of the community, the number of people in attendance, that kind of stuff. But what's your general impression of Worlds? We were all there. Now, I will note, none of us competed
That's right.
at anything. We basically
Just
just
a bunch of old men.
We basically just hung out. I played a good number of games with various people who just had time and wanted to play various games. We did some interviews with some of the developers and some of the people in the FFG studio side of things, and really just kind of enjoyed it. But
that was the name of the game for me, is that every time that we've been to a convention prior to this one, we've lugged the big CPU with us. We have
computer.
But it's like a tower. Like, it's not. If I say computer, it's like maybe a laptop. This is like a big thing that takes up half the trunk. It's a CPU. Central processing unit. Is that what it is?
No, you're absolutely correct. I'm so glad that Zach just had to clarify that for the listeners.
Well, I'm just imagining, like, if my mom, which she does not listen to this, if she did, and you said CPU, she would just immediately be out of here.
But didn't you guys like play NES baseball? Where like you choose computer v CPU. Yeah, that's where the
Yeah, CPU. That was old school.
Yeah, but that's has nothing to do with a rig. What's a rig?
At some point we will need to cover the millennial problem of not Googling anything, because if anybody was listening to this under the age of 20 and didn't know what CPU was, they would just ask somebody.
It would be
not
in the
Google,
comments.
though.
Not Google it.
Yeah.
Anything but Google.
It's the weirdest thing on earth.
Now, technically, we're millennials side now.
I know. That's why I can talk bad about it.
The young millennials.
Those millennials.
Yeah, over there.
Nowadays.
Ben can't hear what
if
we're
you
saying.
grow up with the internet, it's kind of like growing up with a hammer attached to your hand. For whatever reason, you stop thinking that you can nail stuff with it. It's like you had the internet the whole time, and yet the willingness to use it to solve problems seems to be lower than those of us who didn't have it, and then we're like, oh my gosh, this crazy magic box can solve all of my issues.
I think that's because the internet and technology advanced so much that it like pre-solves your problems most of the time. Whereas we originally had problems we just couldn't solve. Like you get to a level in a video game and it's like, I don't know an answer. Yeah. I'm stuck. Yeah. I've been at this place at the Pokemon game for 2 months and I can't figure it out. And then one day you wake up and it's like you have a computer and the internet and you're like, wait a second. The answer's right there.
People have figured this out.
But now they're just making games where the game tells you how to do it instead of
or even IKEA furniture. It's easy. You don't have to worry about it.
Snap it in.
I'm still amazed by spell check. I remember I used to go and then look it up in a dictionary or just spell it wrong. And now the computers does it for me. And still every time I'm like, oh, this is great. Thanks technology.
And still there are words that get through.
Okay. There is
encyclopidias.
So we took the CPU, the computer, the rig, the what have you, the big old tower,
unit,
the central processing unit, core processing unit,
ones
whatever
and zeros,
it is.
man.
Yeah, we this is the first time ever since the history of us covering conventions that we have not taken it, which means
that's not true. Because I was
getting revved up there.
I know. Our very first. This is a good little bit of story. The first convention that you traveled with us. So we went to a convention without you at all.
That's right.
No computer involved.
Sad times.
Just lots of Chinese foods and spoils. Then we didn't go the next year. Then we went the next year, and that was the first year we took you.
Yeah, that's when I brought the big old camera.
You brought the camera.
The mini DV
and
camera.
I happened to have a laptop, and I brought it. And then there were a bunch of spoilery things for Monster Apocalypse, and I was like, hey.
Scooping it, because I was also working at a news station.
Yeah, you were really into the scoops.
Really into the scoop.
But back then, I remember I was so impressed because the original intro on a lot of our old videos, Gen Con 2010, if you're very interested. And I take that back. Don't look at that.
Don't search it.
Anyways, Gen Con 2010. The intro there was literally hot made on my laptop.
You're giving the wrong impression here.
Different trip. No, just kidding. Anyways, it was made on the spot.
Yes. Yeah.
On my laptop is the point. On a very old Mac that's not built for this kind of processing. Right. We were putting videos up and it was crazy. But then I think every convention after that until now. We've brought an actual CPU.
And that has come along with the promise and the focus of just covering as much stuff as possible. And if you guys have been following us for a long time, you'll notice that Gen Con was a little bit less everything and more very important things. And with this, we did that even more. I mean, you've got people like Dodge Pong, you've got people, SMC.
SMC was doing Netrunner.
And then FFG is also, they're all running great streams.
Live streaming.
So it's if you want the games, you got the games. That's
because the reason
that mantle's been taken over.
We used to film a bunch of games.
Yes, we used to film a bunch of games.
Post them afterwards.
Right
and
there.
it took a lot of time.
It took a lot of time. And basically that was people would ask me, hey, what are you playing? And I would say filming is my tournament, right?
Yeah.
This is the first time where playing was my tournament. But
not even in the tournament.
But I wasn't in the tournament. But I got to play. That's all this long, ridiculous story to say that I, for the first time ever, I took decks to Worlds. I sat in the little lobby, and I got to play L5R against people that would come up and ask me for a game, and it was wonderful. It was. I mean, you know, it's the best.
That's right.
I've kind of hid behind the camera for all these years, and being able to actually get out there and play L5R and witness the stories happening and talk to the people. It's just. I mean, this is why we do it. It was wonderful.
And I think you really relate to the player who like is kind of uncomfortable learning in front of people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm very
like,
much uncomfortable.
You don't
want
to be incompetent in a game and play it in public.
Yes.
So like, it was cool to see you actively just challenging people to games.
Yeah.
And
And I warned him like I'm not very good, but you know that I am.
And
that
you still
is
had fun, huh?
And I had a great time. Yeah, I won some games, lost most of the games. But again, it's about the story, and I think L5R particularly is story based. If you want to play it in a story way, and competitive based. If you want to play it in a competitive way, hopefully we'll get to that. But there was some really cool competitive stuff going on. But yeah, that was my Worlds, is getting to play for the first time ever, getting to play and interact and talk with people, and that was really, really wonderful. I'm very happy about that.
I think this is the strangest 15 minutes opening in a podcast I've ever experienced.
We just went for it.
I've been just like
Technically, we're only 11 minutes in, by the way.
bewildered the entire time after that hotbox comment. You've got.
I don't know. What do you call it? There's a word for it.
Now everyone's going to think that we're
Slapdashing it.
recording this, under illicit means, which we're not at all. Never
Only
have,
caffeine.
Of course, never have. And also that we're just insane. We're insane people.
It's been a really weird startup, honestly.
And it's been a very weird day. This day has been crazy. I don't know what it is. What is so bizarre about this?
It might be that we went to Worlds. We didn't just burn all the energy out completely. And we got back, and now it's just like, wait, I'm supposed to be exhausted right now.
Oh.
But instead I was here early.
Okay. And, I know what else it is. It's the daylight savings time thing.
Oh, yeah.
That's been screwing with me like crazy. I was up at 6:30 today, and it's like, well, normally this is 7:30, so I guess it's normal. But, again, that comment not even contributing to the base problem that I'm recognizing here, which is, let's get to the point of Worlds. What's my Worlds experience like, Zach?
Yes, that's what I asked. I think.
Let's get into it. Okay, so it was great. It was excellent. We, as you said, we played a bunch of games in the main event hall. I think that Worlds minus Star Wars is an entirely different Worlds experience.
Yeah.
I also think that the thing that we realized most about Worlds is that it's not really a convention.
No.
Right?
It's a series of tournaments.
Yeah, it's a series of tournaments.
Yeah.
So it's really less about, hey, look at all the content, and more about like there's live stream tournaments going on, and then there's downtime. And like those two things are pretty much what Worlds is, and especially when you take Star Wars out, it feels like a much more casual audience. I mean, I think X-Wing is probably one of the most competitive games that FFG has, just in terms of like it being a featured tournament game. Like there's a ton of people that love competing at X-Wing. You have your only collectible game in Destiny, so there's a ton of people that like a lot of collectible games, like the main competitive archetypes are drawn to that genre. So I think with Star Wars, you have a lot of that like hot, competitive vibe going on the whole time. But with the FFG kind of exclusive titles, you have Rune Wars, which is as casual, I think, as can be. Not to say that it's not a hard game to play or a worthy game to play, but it's a very big, in-depth miniatures game.
Would you say it's like Armada level?
Yeah, definitely.
That maybe it's more of a beer and
Peanuts
evening,
kind of game?
Oh, it's over an evening kind of beer.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also, it's an entirely exclusive, controlled world, right? You don't even have the big ships and stuff where people might be like, oh, Star Wars. So you're just so focused on this world and this game. And so it's a pretty tight-knit community, I have to imagine, of people who are engaged in Rune Wars. Then you have L5R launches. So this is a new thing. This is interesting. You have some old collectible-minded people and competitive-minded people probably coming into Worlds for the first time. That tournament seemed to have gone extremely well. But again, it's kind of it's a deliberate kind of game. It's a slower, it's not like an adrenaline to your veins kind of game like Destiny or X-Wing can be, where you're rolling dice and everything's crazy. It's a very slow, methodical kind of game. And then the Thrones is the same way. I think it's slow, methodical kind of thing. And then you have the outlier to me, which is Netrunner, which is more of the fast-paced kind of like juice it in. But the Netrunner community is just such a fascinating group of people. It's one part competitive and one part like just self-reflective and one part like not making fun of, but just like not taking themselves too seriously.
Sure.
It's kind of like, I don't know, there's no good comparison. It's like the Netrunner community would be most likely to like, post a meme at a tournament. If that were even possible.
Also, the long-standing communities, I think it's actually one of the least fractured.
Yeah, that's true.
Potentially no fracturing
Now, it
at all.
could have been, because there was all this nonsense with the deck scraping and stuff that came in. I even know Spags
got even more casual?
Yeah, Spags made buttons that, like, don't scrape me or something, don't scrape me, bro, or something like that, and, like, play mats with, like, lock your decks down and faces and stuff, which he later admitted, and this is what I mean, later admitted in a funny way. Now the pettiness that I needed to get through this is over. Let's heal up and be good. So yeah, I think that's what I'm referencing when it comes to Netrunner. It's like, it's a different kind of thing. But anyway, so it's a way different vibe at FFG's like November Worlds. It's cold, it's dark. It makes it a little bit kind of lazier, I think, and just more almost intimate in that way.
Well,
So,
also, I get the sense, so like, even with Star Wars back in May, you had X-Wing, Destiny, Imperial Assault, Star Wars LCG, and Armada happening.
it's a lot.
And the way they stacked that schedule, and I think this is what made it feel this way even, the way they stacked that schedule back in May, I think, was Star Wars LCG was Wednesday, and maybe Armada. But then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday was Destiny, X-Wing, and Imperial Assault, all jammed in.
Yeah.
And so it felt fuller, and Destiny,
Shoulder to shoulder.
X-Wing's a bigger game. And so, and then they had 2 flights of each, versus like L5R, which is the biggest game from this particular world, had 3 days. The first
That's
flight
true,
happened
yeah.
on Wednesday. And there was a lot more just space and downtime. And
Like
they
literal
divided it
space,
up.
didn't they have like a chair in between, or weren't they spaced out a little
Yeah.
bit more?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Which
totally.
is like, I mean, that alone, psychologically,
Ooh, that's important. Yeah.
yeah, it's like I
Yeah.
can stretch out, I can play this game.
So I think the scheduling was better. Plus, you really, I mean, Rune Wars had a very small turnout, and then you basically have the 3 other games divided across 5 days. So like, it is much just smaller. Like I think I have it somewhere. That's on my other list. The biggest flight of anything here was like 140 or 150 players. So you don't ever have that like full to the brim, no space, long lines at bathroom, which I love. Like,
You love long lines of
no,
bathrooms.
I love not having this. Yeah, I love, it's so funny.
Say what you will about Zach. I know.
I love those long lines at the
I
bathroom.
can't wait to wait.
My favorite thing is, no, just kidding. But not having, the cramped space, the shoulder to shoulder, is really cool.
Can
but
you
it was
imagine if they hadn't separated the Star Wars out? Because I'm sure that was an option to not separate it, right?
There's
it
no
would have
way.
been impossible.
yeah, that's what Worlds last year was.
Yeah.
They didn't have Destiny yet, but other than Destiny, it was like just absurd.
Yeah.
Just truly, truly absurd.
I will say this, for a World Championship, there is a vast number of people there who do not care about winning Worlds.
Most.
And I like that. I
Most.
like that a
Big
lot.
fan.
I mean, the reality, I always say this when this kind of topic comes up, but it's like, even when you are capable of winning, there's enough good players, like L5R cut to 16 after it was all said and done. And it's like, there's enough good players that even if you're one of the top 20 players, you might not make the cut.
Yeah.
So I think you have to there's one person that gets to win this thing. So I think you have to go in knowing, like,
Or you just go in not even interested.
Not even trying,
Isn't that
yeah.
amazing? So when you think about pitching a World Championship, you would imagine that the folks who are just looking to play games and have a good time with people, it's like that's the last thing that you would think would be like the selling point. It's like, hey, come to World Championships, pay the $70 to play in this event, have a chance at getting some sweet prizes if you get in the top 16.32. It's like none of that matters. It's just a chance to play as many games as possible in a weekend with this universal kind of community that's also interested in your game.
Yeah.
So I was amazed. I'm always amazed, I guess, to see the reality of people willing to travel, willing to come to this event with absolutely no desire to win it whatsoever.
Do you think that kind of speaks to like almost a sea change in the majority of why people seek playing games? I mean, certainly at the Magic Star City Games level, people were very competitive, and that was a big deal. Even Spoils back in the day was catering to the big players, the competitive players. And now you see a lot more of this. Do you think it's L5R? Do you think it's just people are changing, or do you think that it's just the nature of this tournament?
Or is it the
What
fact that
led to
FFG's like, organized play, prizes, and all of that is not
Never been
not
cash.
enough to be crazy about, right? And does it come back to cash in tournaments? If you have the $16,000 cash prize for L5R, I have to imagine it changes the tournament.
Yeah.
I just don't think that it's the same event at all.
It becomes a job.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is what they've been saying,
Well,
for-
it's
for
certainly
many years.
different, and people that want to compete that way, that's not a problem. They're welcome to do that. But in terms of, I think the way FFG views what organized play for their games should be, that is exactly what we saw at Worlds is what they want from everything that I've understood. Is it should be low key, not a whole lot on the line, but enough to make it meaningful. And for those who want to compete, go for it. For those who just want to play 7 rounds of this game, you're also extremely welcome. And then, evenings out, nights out,
Yeah.
breakfast together, all that kind of stuff.
And I wonder if the Hatamoto, the way they do the Hatamoto stuff, contributed to that. Because if you're in a final game, right, or even a near final game, it's not winner take all, right? If you're that high already, you know that you've won it for your clan. You of course want to win for your clan, but even if you don't win, you still have a certain amount of choice and power that you can throw in there. So maybe that's something.
It certainly affects for L5R. As for the other games, it's like, well,
That's true.
they don't really have that working for them. Like in L5R, the top unicorn player is probably Brandon, right?
It was.
It's Brandon. But I think at some point somebody told me like he was like 35th or something at the end of the standings, but was the top ranking unicorn. So what they did is they took the bottom of the top 32,
So
bottom of the top 16.
it was top 16, and then they took the top performing player not in the top 16 from all 7 clans. So you
Yeah.
have the top 23, and then seeds, I guess 9 through 16.
Yeah.
Played against the next 7 players,
Yeah.
and the winner of those games went on to the top 16.
That crazy? So like, if you're not in the top 16, but you're the top ranking player in your clan that is not in the top 16, so everybody under that, the top from each clan is taken and given a chance to get into the top 16.
cool.
It's really cool.
It's
like the
'cause
wild card.
It gives
Yeah.
that's one of the coolest things little like tournament innovations, I guess, that I saw at this event, because it gave Unicorn a chance to be in the cut.
And then
like,
Brandon gets in.
Yeah.
And he does get into the cut
Yeah.
through that mechanism, I believe.
And I think there was one other, I don't remember which clan it was, maybe it was Crab, that was, or Lion. I don't know, it wasn't Lion, because he ended up, it was a Lion player. I don't remember the exact thing, but
It's pretty cool,
Given
though.
a chance like that, and again, Brandon at Unicorn, even if he lost that first game, was still the top ranking Unicorn player.
Yeah.
So he gets to ultimately choose his clan's role, even if it is the last person to get to choose.
And that's cool.
So I want to kick it off here. We're going to talk about each of the games in particular, and they each bring up different questions for me. I want to actually start with Netrunner.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
So
It was good to be back, man. I spent the whole weekend trying to talk shop with all of my old Netrunner buds.
they talk fast and in lots of acronyms.
I know lots of acronyms.
Yeah, Dan walks up and he's like,
They just know so much, and I like a place like Worlds is really tough, because I've learned that when it comes to people like Dan or Spags, Aaron, and a vast number of people that I saw that I remember from Netrunner and that I've had meaningful conversations with. It's like I want to take an hour and just stop and like properly catch up, get some lunch or something. But it never happens that way, so I always end up feeling this kind of awkward interaction just happened, where it was 5 minutes of like trying to understand what you were talking about in this deck versus trying to catch up on your life versus hearing this crazy story about this thing that happened that I'm trying to, again, understand because I don't know what that card does. And then seeing a new person over here, now they're in the conversation, and it's just kind of like, I always feel like in some ways I've not gotten enough from the interactions that I have at Worlds. And so like catching up with those people is always very much like, it's kind of, we're all just trying to get in as much as we can while we have it, knowing that in the next 2 to 5 minutes, it goes away. And like, that's how every Worlds interaction is, which is a bummer, unless you do manage to get the dinner and the lunch and those kinds of things. So that's one thing that I did notice in real. I was like, man, I really
need
was
more
like,
time.
Dan, for instance, came over and it was awesome to talk to him, sat down with us. And it was 5 minutes of like trying to talk over noise and like, eventually getting a conversation. So I was checked up on how his girlfriend was doing when she had a real rough time, and very glad to know that she's okay. And Dan made it, flew in on Saturday. And Dan's always juiced up anyway. I mean, he's crazy. And like, he reminds me so much of Brian. I cannot even describe it. And we're talking, and he's ribbing us for fly casual dice, because we're playing Destiny, and it's just perfect. But it's like I really want to sit down for like an hour and a half and be like, Dan, I want to know more about you as a person. I really like you, and I want to like figure out, how are you? How are you doing? But you rarely get that opportunity. So instead, like I said, I was trying to do my best to talk shop, as it were. And there were moments of I know what I'm talking about, and I know what they're talking about, and there are moments of I am totally faking it here, and I'm going to Google those cards later on.
Yeah, I was following along with Dan for about a minute, and then he said like 8 acronyms in a row. Or acronyms in a row? And acronyms.
Those are old acronyms, out of date.
What a funny word joke, man. He is ready. Anyways, he just said like 6 things in a row, and then I'm like, all right, back to Destiny. I'm out of here.
Roll the dice.
So Netrunner, we've talked about it a lot on the podcast.
Yeah.
Recently went through just,
It worked.
Maybe I'll call it the midlife crisis of Netrunner.
That's a really good way to look at it.
Yeah. It was either dying or I mean that's more that's a more intense midlife crisis.
It was
than
either
most.
going to slowly become an old man or it was going to buy the motorcycle.
Yeah, or it was just straight up going to have a heart attack. I mean it
had to change. Something had to change. So I guess outside looking in, you didn't get to play it, but I know you've had some involvement in that community and you kind of could touch base with them. In general, would you say Reboot worked?
Yeah, 100%. I've never. I mean, the excitement and the general air of things was meta's wide open, meta's great, more diversity than ever. Like Dan was even talking about going back to that conversation, which I think he had a good point, and it's perfect for a player like Dan, which is also it's remarkable, and I say this in the true sense of the word, that he has been able to do as well as he has in Netrunner consistently. That to me is a bit mind-blowing because the amount of actual variance in Netrunner is real. Like, you can take your 16 accesses a game, and sometimes you're going to hit 0 agendas just because that's the way it works. And knowing that, even with that happening randomly every now and again, always gets there.
First, third?
Yeah, just like always is there. And I think that is just phenomenal. And there's a number of people like this that always find their way right there. It's like bringing the right deck, knowing what to bring, knowing what everybody else thinks they're going to bring, you're going to bring, etc. But then it's just playing so well, like down the line so well.
Consistently playing.
It's really impressive that is possible. Like, if you're talking about a game like Thrones or even L5R, you know what? Like, I can understand how you can binary that thing out so hard that you know what your deck does, you know what your card draw is, and you can do essentially the same thing every game, and if it works, it works. But with Netrunner, with random accesses being involved, I think it's fascinating that you can be so consistently good at the game. But he was talking about basically how diversity was huge, and that actually stressed him out, like that he wasn't sure that was best, because whenever it's essentially 2 known great decks, 1 great corp, 1 great runner, or maybe like 1 great runner, 1 kind of alternate runner, and like 1 great corp, that you take away the variable of bad matchups or weird things, and it becomes purely cerebral player skill, right? So like if I know Haley's the best deck, and you know that controlling the message is the best deck, and we both are bringing those decks, and there's 25 to 30 other players that are doing that, let's say 100 other players that are doing that, it no longer becomes the matchup that I drew was favorable to me. It becomes, we all know the score, and who's going to play it best consistently to get to the top tables. And I understand that. I can respect that. It's not why I play these games at all. Like that seems so boring to me, to be the best spreadsheet, in the land, but like, I think the creativity of deck building is a critical part of these kinds of tournaments. So I like to see diversity.
Yeah.
And I think the reason I like it the most is because it rewards people who can build and play fundamentals. So that you don't have bad matchups, right? Like that's the ideal to me is whenever
Well-
you have to bring a deck that can handle tags and damage and
Or you have to make the choice. I'm going to take a 10% risk that I run into the bad matchup. I don't think people are going to be playing that deck so much. And you take that risk full well. Like you know, right? Like you typically run decks that aren't particularly great against any one thing, but they're also not bad against one thing.
Yeah.
Whereas I sometimes prefer just making the right call. It's like I don't expect to see this deck, and if I do, I'll just lose that game.
Let the deck sort of run itself. But Steven, I think, has always been more interested in piloting and the skill of the pilot. And I think a diverse toolkit is what a diverse meta brings, because you have to, okay, I need to use this, I need to use this, I need to draw till I get this. Not every time, but against this deck or this deck or whenever
And I think
see
a diverse
this thing,
meta means that you can't be reliant on that matchup, right? Like you have to be able to play out of things.
kind of. But I also think that what a lot of the top players are going to do is make a bet. I think they're going to say, I'm going to lose to tags, and when I see it, I'm going to lose. Which I don't like as much. Like I would prefer but I like sealed and limited kind of play, right? I like the fundamentals going. So my response would be, I need to cover all of my bases and have a fair shot against everything. Whereas I think a player like Dan would say, what is everybody else on? And let's just smoke that. And when I hit the weird, deck that I'm not prepared for,
There's
I'll
a chance I'll
just
just
lose.
lose.
Yeah, just take a little mental
and
break there.
I am always hesitant, especially when competing at like Worlds, to ever play a deck that has a direct loss, like a 95% loss. But I'll take a like 40% if they are equally skilled.
Yeah,
they'll beat me.
that's fine.
Because back to the piloting thing, it's like I'm looking to prove that I can pilot past that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, me too. But anyway, Wilfie won. Wilfie
Yeah.
Morg from
Yeah.
Australia. Of note, no American champions in the American held championship.
World Championship.
Which is great. The dream of worlds, I think, is alive and well.
Yeah, we're getting wrecked. So
Yeah. What up was that?
So, it's the whole theory of like they are having to basically make a bigger commitment to show up. So like
So they care more?
They're
Is that
gonna
all it
really make
is?
it happen. No, I'm just kidding. No, I
all
actually
the jet lag and
I think it's really cool to see, and I'm hopeful that good old USA brings some teeth next year.
yeah,
Now we have something to prove.
maybe we should get into fighting.
But
shape next year.
here's my question: is what country had the most fun?
Yeah, eat that, Australia.
One thing to note, so I know typically Netrunner Worlds has somewhere in the 250 to 350 range of players. This year had 229. But one thing I saw consistently
It's not bad, actually.
online, especially because 6 months ago it was questionable. But one thing I saw a lot of during Worlds and after Worlds on social media, on the various communities, was a lot of people saying I basically committed not to going.
Yeah.
And then I wish I had gone because the game is different now.
Yeah.
So I think the World's numbers, at least for Netrunner, next year will be a lot more indicative. And going into Store Championship regional season, I'm also interested to see what tournament turnout ends up being.
Well, let's talk about Wilfie real quick on the
Hit me on the Wilfie.
decks. Yeah. Hit me on the Wilfie. Running Haley and Cerebral Imaging.
Okay.
I have a lot to say about
CI,
that.
by the way, everyone's calling it
CI.
CI. If you're into acronyms,
There it is.
Yeah,
CI.
CI.
Like the CPU.
Because I didn't know
CI.
I didn't know what people were like, CI. I'm glad that you cerebral imaging.
CI is there.
Cerebral
Cerebral Imaging, yeah.
My memories of CI are painful.
It's so
It's the
here's
hand-sized Mew thing, right? Memory thing.
Here's the
Got him.
Here's us and you. You can have 4 cards in your hand. No, it's your credit pool. So it's
There
tied
it
to your
is.
credit pool. So the number of credits now, obviously. So a couple of things have happened. One, we lost the only HB ID that anybody ever played, which was gain a credit when you install. So, hey, HB cards are good. We still like HBI, so we still like all this stuff. What are we going to do? Cerebral Imaging, the next best thing for all HB
Now
players.
the best thing. Maybe.
Now the best thing. So the problem with CI is there's no account siphon, which used to be the bane of Cerebral Imaging.
Because they come in, nuke your credits, and
Drain
your
the
hand's
credits,
gone.
now my hand goes away. Okay, dismantled. We've gotten some better ice, I think, ultimately to protect HQ with. And then now you have no idea what's going on. You're staring at 20 cards in your opponent's hand, and they can combo out to kill you. They can kill you without comboing. They can score out points normally. They can establish remote servers. They can do a 7-point score combo out of their hand. Like, you literally have none idea what this deck is doing. So
It sounds like you have kind of an idea.
it was
Just
old
kidding.
school. It was you have all ideas.
Yeah, it's like they could be.
They're not losing. I'll tell you that much. It was like old school NBN. You remember NBN? Where it was like,
it's like, are you killing me? Are you
killing
faster
me?
than
Are you
me?
faster than me?
Are you
Yeah,
scoring?
it's
Are
not
you
that you
draining?
don't have an idea of how they might win. You have there's multiple ways they could do
There's
it,
a-
and you
there's a
can't
million.
protect against all of
Yeah,
them.
yeah, there's a million. And so you don't know, like, can you be reckless? If they're trying to score out, be reckless and go get agendas. But then if they're trying to kill you, you just lost. If they're trying to kill you, then you got to play conservative.
So you gotta
But then
make
if
a
they
bet.
score agendas, you got to make a lot of bets throughout the game. And Wilfie's deck was remarkably normal in terms of cerebral imaging. Drain your credits, play economic warfare, install some assets even, remote servers, who cares? Make it happen. You know, I think he was doing the austerity as well. And just classic HB score him out kind of stuff. So
Nice. That's
It
good
works.
fundamentals, right?
yeah, and then Haley, I mean, looking at the deck list, looking at any shaper deck list is kind of a.
I love it. It's so many one-ofs.
It's just. Hey, do you need to relearn everything about this game because you just saw 45 card one of everything and you don't know what half
saw
of
this
them
list.
even mean.
Well, I mean, the thing about that, a lot of those one-ofs are programs.
Yes.
And they still have the self-modifying code.
Yeah.
So they can go get what they need.
Which is so shapery, by the
and
way.
And Haley has the classic. When you install something, you can get a free action to install a similar thing. So like
Just a similar thing.
you can install another card. Anyways, the truth is that in a deck that can tutor, which is search the deck
Right.
for whatever they want, one-ofs make a lot of sense.
Oh, no, it totally does. I don't think it's wrong at all. I think it's great. I mean, first of all, it's great tech. Playing a shaper deck, especially right now, remarkably hard if you don't know what you're doing. Because you just have an answer for everything, but if you don't know what everything is, then forget it. Things that were really interesting to me were Levy as the restricted card. So that's cool. That's the shuffle all your cards back in. I don't know if that's a response. There was a lot of weird PE style decks running around, like old school Jinteki. And we can talk about that here in just a second, but Levy is restricted, tons of tech cards, and then, dude, I loved this. Fan sites. 3 fan sites, which is the when the corp scores an agenda, it's you install when the corp scores an agenda, you know, you throw it into your score area with a 0-point agenda. And then has this Shadow Net, maybe there's other reasons to do this too, but has Shadow Net, which is a resource where you can forfeit an agenda to play a event from your discard pile. So it's like you just fan side up, and then
the Shadow Net.
you have basically the ability to play things
cool.
and run like indexing and this kind of stuff. So it's I think one of the only ways to recur stuff at this point, because we've lost Deja Vu, which is a big deal. I think Same Old Thing is still in, right?
I feel like it's still around.
So I don't know, it's cool. Like it's crazy. It's using cards that already have existed for a long time in new ways, and I think that's everything
That's
you could ask
awesome.
for a meta. We also saw Smoke, Valencia, Max, Ed Kim. We saw none Criminal. Criminal is dead.
They're still
wow.
just
right now.
gone.
They had the first half of the game. They can
They can take a
deal
break.
with it. Anarch's still just playing like good stuff, which makes me happy. Like everyone's just playing 2 of all the discard breakers, and then whatever you want, which is great. Like
Fill in your deck.
I guess that's why I play Anarch. And then on the corp side, we had Cerebral Imaging was the most played.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, at first glance, it's like, ugh, Cerebral Imaging.
But it's just HP.
It's just HB, really,
Yeah.
isn't it? Then we had Ag Infusion, which is a crazy deck. I can give you a little on that. Ambient controlling the message, that's standard kind of asset spam kind of stuff, I think. Jinteki Potential Unleashed, this is the chainsaw. This is the, whenever you take net damage, you discard a card off the top of the runner's deck.
You're
And
trying to
so
deck 'em.
it's just trying to deck you and run you out of cards forever.
Maybe that's what the levy was about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what but so Sam, I talked to Sam Seward, remarkable also. Take 3 credits and pass is what you call that deck. You just take money and just pass.
You're just
basically.
waiting.
You just wait. And it's like, that sucks. But then Haley, Wolfie's Haley is running the net damage prevention thing, feedback filter, to get around that. You know, so you go, so all that's happening. But I don't like that there's a deck that you can just stuff it full of weird cards and then just never play. Like that.
Yeah,
That
it
shouldn't
seems
exist.
against it.
Then you had Wayland, a rush deck, Titan.
Hey!
You had all the
Whoa,
corps.
in there.
Hey!
All the corps are in there. The top 5. We saw all 4 corps. And then Ag Infusion, this is a weird deck. So Ag Infusion is whenever you approach an unrezzed ice, you can trash it and force them to run on another server. So it's like a rush deck. It's a crazy, same old Nisei Mark II kind of stuff. And you have Excalibur, like an unres piece of ice, and then a protection upgrade, like a baddie or something. So ideally, they hit Excalibur, which means they can't make another run this turn. Then you trash this thing here and send them over to some grinder on Centrals, and then you score out your agendas.
That's
and it's
crazy.
Just like, that's it.
I love it.
That's
It's like,
cool.
oh, cool. Okay, I can.
I can get into that.
Yeah.
That seems like a great like
Yeah.
aggro instead of the old fast advance 1, 2, and done.
Anyway, I think it delivered.
I was gonna say.
I think
final
it
thoughts
delivered.
on that?
It sounds like there's a
Delivered.
lot of excitement.
Aside
around
from
it.
Criminal just being sad, it totally delivered.
But I'm not complaining about that, honestly.
Well, I mean, you want to see it. You want to see it somewhere. I think there was a Geist build somewhere that did okay.
Yeah.
But
Well, maybe in the next
might
year
have even
we'll
done real well.
We'll see where we're at.
Before we leave Netrunner, I want to ask one thing because I was really struck by the comment that you made that these are cards that have existed for a long time now, and now because of the way that rotation has shifted things, they are coming out, presenting exciting opportunities, new combos, that kind of stuff. Is this really proof positive that the rotation world is going to be a lot of fun? That it's really gonna open up more than I think that we thought it was going to.
It is way more fun.
Well, I think
Controlled card pool is way more fun. I mean, I'm willing to say that 100%. I would take it smaller, actually.
Well, and I think it's not just rotation. So rotation to get rid of some important cards, but it was also I think the band restricted list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they chainsawed out
Yeah.
all the things that couldn't exist.
Lower runner economy, and that's the problem with Criminal is it's a faction built around runner money, and when you take out a lot of the runner money that was being imported to other factions and causing problems, Criminal itself isn't left with a whole lot of advantage. You lose Desperado to Music
Yeah.
Contract, like all that kind of stuff.
Gabe.
It's like they're no longer the econ, dads.
All right, so we're gonna move along here to L5R. Now this is the first World Championship for this game, and it I believe is I don't have the comparison of the last, but it was a 3-flight tournament, and they were talking about it as though it was the biggest World Championship they'd hosted.
No.
Well, yeah. I mean, but at the same time, I mean, in the past they've been capped.
Yeah.
So.
We'll get that's my actual
I
question.
mean, so you could have had 1,000.
This is worth talking about, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, what does because some people are talking about, which is what do the numbers behind participation at Worlds really say? And there's variables like in the past they were
Very
capped,
little.
but I actually have because people always they'll say that, right? It's like oh there were only 110 this year for Star Wars LCG, and it's like that is a number. That's fine, I guess.
I would find that to be very remarkable.
That was a year.
actually.
That happened.
Yeah.
There were several years where it was
Yeah.
even bigger than that. But the short version is like a lot of people I think use, at least in my opinion, World's participation as an indication of like overall game health or like community health. And I am just out on that.
I understand the reason why they would do that.
You just got to get away from that. Though,
Yeah,
don't
it's
we?
the only number that we've gotten and since the game's been released. So there's propensity to do that, but as we've learned now that we're looking at analytics and stuff for our own business, that the numbers are really a lot more fuzzy than you want them to be.
There's no worldwide player count. I mean, that's the thing, and like you have the number of variables, which is like the number of people who are willing to travel for Worlds, like the vast majority, the huge number of people that play Thrones in Europe, right? For instance, they're not going to come to the World Championship, right?
Or most
they're going to go
of
to
them aren't.
Stalik. They're going to do the European thing. So like, where is the player base primarily, and do they want to travel? Do they care about competing at all? Is there a satisfying community locally for this game that makes it not really necessary to travel? Like, there's a lot to think about.
And I met a lot of the people that I met, and this is anecdotal, but they were playing L5R were from the Minnesota area.
Yeah.
Where there is a great store system. A lot of stores out there are playing L5R and hosting tournaments, and I think that's grown the community there. But that's very easy for them to come in and play.
Oh yeah,
so
super easy.
the numbers are sort of skewed
Sure.
there by the
But
distance.
regardless, L5R had a lot of participation.
It did.
It's a relatively new game. It's been out about a month with a World Championship, and even just breaking down some of the numbers, the clan splits were pretty even. Unicorn was the smallest at like 2%, I think, based on the article that we got.
That's fair for Unicorn. You wouldn't
But-
expect anything less.
And
would you?
Unicorn started off at the original tournament being underrepresented. doing very bad.
And a lot of people there said it was the one core set thing, but
Yeah, but that's the awesome thing is that there was a few people that figured out how to really run it with Unicorn. Now, they didn't make it all the way, but I think that's one of the interesting things about just having these tournaments is that people will now look at those games and be like, well, maybe I can play Unicorn. What are they doing?
And as a specific example, Thrones was won by Targaryen. And I think only like 8% of the field was Targ or something.
It was not predicted.
So very low.
Love
And
it.
talking to the local Thrones players before, Targ was definitely not the like, this is the house that I'm scared of kind of thing. It's like you could build a fun Targ deck. Like that was the mentality even a month ago.
It happens every time it turns.
It's so funny.
Every time.
It's so funny. So the main thing out of L5R that I actually found most discussable was the round time. They recently announced their tournament documents, and the round time was an hour for L5R, which, in context, the round time for Thrones is 55 minutes.
That's crazy. I mean, I guess you're running up against a lot of needs all at once, like. But man, I can't even get a game of L5R set up in an hour.
And to be fair, the people that have been playing this a lot, and maybe the people at World Championship, I was just asking, because I just assumed it would have to be an hour 15, hour 20, hour 30 in an ideal world. Because for me, the question of, what percentage of your games do you want your players to finish in a tournament? And how many of those do you want going to time? In ideal world, none of them go to time to me.
Time is so lame.
But obviously you do have to move the event along, and you don't want hundreds of players waiting for one game to finish. So that is why a time limit gets introduced. But then it's you have to, there's an acceptable amount of games, right? If it's let's say at an hour, 15 minutes, 10% of games will go to time. And then at an hour, it's 20%. I don't have any math on this whatsoever. But I don't know, it just struck me, and I was talking to a lot of players, and it seemed like in 6 rounds of Swiss, most players had 3 or 4 of their games finishing without going to time. And it wasn't I'm playing this clan, like Phoenix, so it takes me a long time to win or lose, so it goes to time. It was players from across the clans were consistently having about...
There were a couple big games on the stream that went to time in very dramatic ways.
I think L5R is it's a deliberate game. That's what it set out to be. It didn't set out to be the next 30-minute tournament game. It set out to be literally, when we were talking to Brad and those early interviews on camera, it's we want it to feel very deliberate, very thought about, thoughtful, epic, considered. So you can't shove it into an hour. I can't consider anything in an hour. That's crazy. But also, I will say, people playing L5R well, I can't talk to them.
It's a whole other world.
I have no idea. I thought I was behind on Netrunner, but I have no idea. It's turn 1, I knew it was over. Because he dropped out of his provinces, 2 Lion Pride Berserkers, had the double Muramoto's Fury, Water Ring, and I was just I don't know what you're saying. But literally, there were people saying, by turn 1, I knew it was over.
Because
whether or not that's true, whether or not the game truly was over is
they probably knew that their odds were low.
But it was just this string of 7 cards happened, all in this weird way, and it was they just got it's man...
It's another level of expertise.
Unbelievable.
It was cool to watch.
Just wide-eyed. Yeah, people really are great at L5R. I haven't even started. All of my losing at the game has certainly apparently not gotten me there well enough.
Publicly documented losing as it happens. You got caned by that a little bit.
Yeah, it was rough. But anyway, there's L5R. So what do you think? So who won? The Lion player won, which is awesome. Lion with Dragon. Now everybody was on Dragon, right?
I think on the article that went up in FFG, it was over 40%.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Let go and Muramoto's Fury.
That's it.
Yeah.
Just
3 of each.
Swooshing.
It's not. How do you do better than that?
Yeah, let it go it's so important. If you've ever
Assuming
been
people
tagged,
are running attachments.
with an attachment, or even though the one that attachment that blanks you, which is escaping me right now, blanks your card. I got wrecked by that.
It's discard any attachment. Let go.
Yeah.
I'm not one to complain, except that I am actually very much.
I was well, history serves. I'm going to pull up other podcasts.
I like to be a little saucy sometimes for the benefit of our viewers.
That's right. Exclusively for the viewers.
It's purely a persona that I'm putting on, right? Right? I don't understand how this lesson consistently goes unlearned.
You mean the total lack of any kind of restriction or cap on a thing?
That's correct.
Weird. But I mean,
Out of a core set.
So the trick though is like a couple things. I know. Yeah, I'm trying to frame it.
Tell me how
the main thing is that the vast majority of attachments, the cost structure they've attached to attachments right now, is mainly 0 and 1.
That is
and
true.
will forever and always have to be that.
Yep.
Why? Because that one card.
Yeah.
Because that one card. 2 cost attachment, impossible. 3 cost attachment, impossible. 4 cost, you're kidding yourself, right? It's like, let's just do it right out of the core set and just say never. Never expensive attachment.
I mean, sort of. Like, never if you're playing against dragon or if that is what they chose to splash.
Yeah, but like...
Because attachments are the dragon thing.
But if an attachment
Both directions.
is good enough that it gets in the meta, then everybody runs 3 let go. Straight up.
Which means everyone splashes dragon.
Unless I don't think
it's
that's
all
true.
just so good elsewhere that you can't even,
I think
trading 0 for
as an example,
3
I
or
think
whatever.
that they have a really good answer to attachments. And so if attachments are good and characters are good and you just go down the list, because there's 7 clans, like if each clan has different things it's good at and splashes other things that it's either good at or not good at, I don't think, like right now, I was kind of wavering on if I even wanted to have the katana and the fan,
yeah.
because it's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's worth the investment, right? So
That's
then it's
what
like,
I'm
well,
saying.
instead of investing in attachments, I'll just invest in additional characters or events or whatever. But as the card pool gets wider, my hope is that you don't have to run attachments.
Yeah.
And so you can run Let Go, but you might play an opponent that has 0 attachments, and you might also play an opponent that plays that awesome 3-cost dragon attachment that gets to move a fate. And like...
I guess the key thing here is that attachments are not a critical part of the game. Like, the difference between, like, of course, if there was a card that said discard a character and with the same text and everything, everyone would be like, this is insane.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is, why is it such a difference for attachments or anything else,
Like,
right?
if, let's say I were designing this card.
2 costs or less, just give me that.
Nope.
Just give me that.
I
Like
would,
Assassinate.
I would just
Same-
say,
Yeah.
I would just say
Yeah.
cost of X.
Here you go.
X is equal to the cost of the attachment you're trying to discard.
That's true.
So you pay 3 fate, you get rid of a 3
Yeah, I
cost.
like that.
I'm just looking for a
Anyways,
little guidance.
So the short thing to me, I mean, I don't think we disagree. I am curious about the round time. Wrapping it back around to L5R. I would prefer games to finish. I would prefer games to finish, particularly once you get to the cut. I know there were several games in the cut going to time, and then you have these weird tiebreak rules.
It feels so awful.
And there was a lot of talk about this. Now, the funny thing is a lot of talk online about the finals in particular, and yet the finals finished.
They did. How long did it take? 2 hours? 3 hours?
I
2.5
wasn't
hours? But they don't have a time limit on the finals, right?
I don't think so.
The one game in the tournament that doesn't have a time limit. It's like, that's a little odd, ultimately. Ultimately, that's a little odd that everybody competes under this rule set to get to a final point where the rules are now different. That's just weird.
I understand from the perspective of it is also odd to have a finals of World Championship that doesn't finish.
Yes, that's the most odd.
But if it's odd there, shouldn't it also be odd over here?
You guys are too into systems.
I get it,
and
but
fairness.
the thing is, there's a restriction. You have a time limit, you have a practicality,
Yeah.
you have a reality, and
It is the practical solution.
yeah,
Also,
yeah. I don't know that an hour is correct.
Well, I mean,
That's the
I
weird
don't know
part
if
for
you
me.
recall back in the Jeremy Zerwin days on when he was playing Conquest, but this is not unknown to happen.
Yeah, like
The
long
final-
games in the
yeah,
finals?
the final game, untimed, of a game that is long and cerebral at the end of the day, you just got to expect it's going to take 2 hours. You really do. Like, I don't think that's unfair.
Yeah.
If I had the time to be like, okay, now you can consider the thing for like the most important thing that you've been playing these 30 whatever games to get to, I'd take that time.
I guess the thing is, like, don't you want that consideration to be happening during every game? Like,
To a point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then slow play gets weird, and I know people were talking about slow play in L5R and whatnot, and it's the most awkward thing to call or to accuse somebody of.
Yeah.
Are you thinking, or are you deliberately trying to cheat me? It's
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
Because Jeremy got accused of the same thing.
I've
and
thought
we know now
before.
from our interviews with him, he just thinks like he's looking through all the possibilities, and that's
Yeah, but
in the game.
I feel like part of the game is the capacity to make those decisions in a certain amount of time.
Well, then you have to do like chess clocks. There's literally no other way to do it, or else it is entirely awkward forever.
Well, it's just subjective at that point.
Yeah, it's
Which
like,
you can't do.
and then it's like, we'll get a judge to watch for a
And
while.
his brainwaves.
And I mean,
yeah,
again,
exactly.
it's kind of coming back to the same math on the practical time limit thing is like, in how many games does this need to be a problem before you're actually coming out with a solution to the problem? Where that, to me, I think, as an example in L5R, if you have an hour and 20-minute round time, most games will finish in time and also not be a problem on the like slow play.
Yeah.
Probably 90-95%, maybe more. And then it's like, is that enough?
Yeah.
Like, is that all you really need to do?
Yeah.
Because I think most people are pretty reasonable.
And I know that it's remarkably stressful, so I wouldn't recommend it, but literally the only fair way to do it is with the chess clock system.
I think that'd be great.
Like, both players get 30 minutes, and if you are not of your 30 minutes, then you lose.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty
enough.
simple, because
Yeah.
like, once you get down to 10, you got to start hustling.
yeah, and obviously the thing about chess is like, you take a single move.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
So like
That's
all
impossible.
the, depending on the game, right?
It's immediately impossible,
Yeah,
because you have conflicts going back and forth.
Yeah,
and
it's
you
just
can't
this,
do
this
that.
crazy thing. So
There's maybe a solution out there.
It's almost like they've thought of these things.
yeah, it's like they've ran into these problems. Last game note for me is Thrones. They had pretty good showing.
More than 100, right?
More than 100. And I was happy to see, like I mentioned earlier, the Targaryen was winning. It wasn't the most popular house, but there's only one true queen.
Everybody saw Lannister and Martell from what I said. I think Greyjoy was like going in the most popular deck just in general. It's like always good. It's the deck that never wins, but that everybody's on.
Yeah.
There's always that
Yeah.
deck. And then you had Martell, and I think everybody was worried too, and I was kind of curious about Thrones for quite a bit going into Worlds. There's this Lannister deck that is just nonsense. It's kind of, it's reminiscent
Is
of
it
the...
Lannister Reigns deck?
I don't even know. They call it a cancer deck, if that gives you
sounds
any idea.
Appealing.
But basically what it is, from what I can tell, and not really being locked into Thrones as well as I should, there's... The premise of the deck revolves around not playing characters. Great. Throwing...
It's always a sign.
Yeah, right. Throwing your deck mostly into the discard pile, and then playing 2 of the plot that lets you play events from your discard piles if they're in your hand. And then, like, when you have, let's say you have your 40 or 50 cards in the discard pile, you drop these plots, you throw your jumper characters in, you give them Intimidate, you have these locations that you've been building the entire time that capture power for winning things and whatnot, and you just blitz to 15 in a turn. And you have like 3 nightmares ready to go. You have 3,
That sounds fun.
jumper cards.
they're in your discard pile, you just play 'em.
You just play them. So, and you have 2 turns of that. So you basically have 2 turns to get to 15 with a crazy board. And I was happy to see that that didn't win. I don't know how much of an impact it was on the Worlds as a whole, but man, glad that didn't happen. Glad that Targaryen made it.
That sounds like one of those decks that like takes several turns to set up.
It does,
then
yeah.
If your opponent can win in the meantime, you don't have too much to stop them.
Truly.
Like I've seen those decks a lot, and from what I heard about the Targ deck, Lord of the Crossing it was somewhat like of an aggressive deck.
Yeah.
And they got power pretty quickly.
Just
and
played
so
Thrones,
It was just
basically.
like, hey, you're gonna go over there and try to discard your deck before you actually start playing, and I'm just gonna get 15 power.
Thrones is an absolutely fascinating game. Do you think that of all the games that we've talked about, that it tends the most towards deck building as an important factor in the game? Like, I always feel like when we talk about Thrones, when we think about Thrones, it's in terms of, here's what this deck was doing.
Yeah.
And if the player didn't screw it up, it would win. I feel like Thrones, I'm always trying to not mess up rather than make good plays. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I think the thing with Thrones is not only deck building is obviously important, and the games kind of do what they do, but part of that to me is the plot system, which is the plots are super consistent and they're going to do what they do every time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it gives you much more like immediate strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
That's
that's
cool.
reflective of how you're going to play.
And the way I'd think about it is that, like, it's a game that you play before you get there, rather than
Like
Game
Game
of
of Thrones is,
Yeah,
right?
Game of Thrones
Like
is. You
have
do
to
all your
plan
planning and
prepare.
you're looking
Yeah.
up, which
Yeah.
is actually really thematic.
Now, on the Thrones note, are you going to...
I was about to say something. Well, everyone I talked to, of the people that I talked to play Thrones, I would ask them, how is it? How's Thrones doing? I haven't heard a lot. What's going on? Everyone says to a man, it is in a fantastic place. It's it's great. It really is. The excitement that I hear people talk about Thrones with, like, surprised me, honestly, every time. It's made me want to look at the game again, personally.
Yeah.
Very surprising for a game that has a cancer deck in it currently.
Named Cancer, yeah. So, I mean, I think that's a very fascinating case study for kind of the L5R switch that's happened, which is 6-pack, 6 weeks, because I think Thrones is 101, LCG 101 in what happens when a game's too slow. Because I remember it was a year ago, August at Gen Con, the game was insane. That whole summer was store championship season.
Yeah.
Big numbers at all these store championships. And I just remember talking to players at that thing, and there was a Lannister deck at that point that was just like obnoxiously good. And it had been good for a minute, like a good minute. And then it was just like 1 pack a month, no big tournament rules changing. And that's when I think a lot of players started getting less interested because it was just not moving. But we'll see how
and you had so many houses to deal with too, really, for the first time. That's hard. And they were doing those faction-specific deluxes. So it's like, you're telling me that if I'm, playing a house and there's the 6th box, it's like, what? Like that's years from now.
3 years from now.
So that's
Which
crazy.
they're paying attention to. I mean, we see a lot of movement now, so maybe Thrones gets some love as well.
I mean, but if you could do it again, just throw all the deluxes all at the same time.
That's actually, I would love that.
It would be perfect. I mean, I think that would have.
It's like if you want to start playing, grab your box of your favorite house and then rock and roll.
Hey, before we get out of here,
we're about to.
Yeah, and we need to. This has been a weird cast. We need to talk about who won what. L5R.
Yep.
French guy, France, the one and only Samuel Beniz. I don't think it's terribly fancy. I think it's Beniz.
All right.
Benies.
From France.
Lion, Clan, and Dragon. So congrats to Samuel and France. We also have Thrones Reinhard Sheffick, I believe, from Austria.
I'm so glad you're pronouncing those names.
Austrians, man.
Yeah.
So we have
Thrones.
Australia for Netrunner.
Yeah.
Austria for Thrones.
Yep.
France for L5R.
Correct.
And Rune Wars was Ireland, right?
Ben Fox, our old friend from Ireland. Yeah, Ben Fox.
Yeah.
Playing the Latari Elves all the way from Ireland. We talk to Ben pretty much every time that he's around. I didn't see him actually at Worlds, but he usually comes over and he's very Irish.
Yeah,
he's
very Irish.
He just comes over and it's like, man, this is great. Hey, you're an awesome guy.
Well, that's cool. 4 countries represented at Worlds.
Yeah, and no Americans. And I wonder if truly the Americans also often are not the ones having the most fun either. So I think there's a case to be made. I mean, the UK with Netrunner, they have a lot of fun. So I think it's although you can't be, I mean, the American Netrunner players are probably having the most fun.
Yeah, we don't even have
They're having a good
sleeves.
time, man.
They're always just like,
That's funny.
from what I know, and I haven't seen it firsthand, but I think that the vast majority of time at Worlds is basically just in a hot tub for the American.
Well, and we didn't get a time
they
to
all
mention
just
it.
hang out in the hot tub together. Like, it's the weirdest thing.
That must be
it's not weird at all,
hot
actually.
tub.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And King of Servers,
Yeah.
Spags run this. He had
Love it.
160 players or
This
something.
is the stuff, and
That's
then,
the magic right there.
He had a side tournament with 160 players.
Yeah. You had meetups for L5R players after Worlds. The whole thing, this is the other part of Worlds we didn't really even get into because we didn't go to any of those things. Probably we were mostly
thanks
in
for
the
the
hall.
invite.
Well, they did invite us.
That's
Oops.
true. Yeah,
But this is another big part. This is why you come. This is why you go to there, is to sit in the hot tub or to go to the side events and to really establish those connections outside of the official means. Is that a good period?
I just wish. Honestly, what I want is why don't we just drop the World Championship thing? Like, we can have them there, but like just have a fantasy flight, like Star Wars Celebration. Have a fantasy flight celebration, both Star Wars, one, and then another non-Star Wars one. Get people together. You pay your $50. You can go play at any tournament that you want. You can do anything that you want. You have side events going on. Like, I know that's not exactly. FFG doesn't necessarily probably want to focus on that. Like, that's not.
There's some dangers to that.
Man, I think that's more of what your games are bringing to the table.
Community.
I think it is about those kinds of communities coming together. You don't have big prizes. It's obvious. I mean, we've got these. These are nice. Like, I don't mind these. But like, nobody's writing home about this, right? It's not like. That's what I mean, though. It's not a big.
It's not prestige.
It's not. It's only prestige because you won and you were
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
But the stuff you take home is not prestigious stuff.
Stuff you
right?
take
Well,
home is the
and-
memories.
That's right. So let's open it up to more memories and less stuff, right?
But I wonder, because like if you look at the pacing of, and this relates to our very first question, which we'll get to in a second, but I wonder,
finally.
What'd you do at Worlds? That was our first question.
yeah, no, you guys. Anyways, I wonder, you have this relaxed schedule with lots of space, and like I know L5R players who played the first day on Wednesday, made day 2, which is on, I think, Saturday, and had nothing in between.
Yeah.
And it was like they had 2 or 3 days to do whatever they want. It's
Yeah.
like, how much of that needs to be official? And how much of that is just going to happen by getting people to come together from across the country?
Well, I'll tell you this. It'd be nice if the event hall wasn't taken up by people playing in the event hall.
If there was somewhere to go that wasn't just that place, yeah.
Yeah, like, because
Yeah.
we were trying to find space at the front of the diner, you know, area, and there's only a few tables there. But if you had a nice, relaxed, even convention center style place, half of it the World Championships are having, the other half, you playing L5R? You want to play a game?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the main thing missing was about 3 times the space.
Yeah.
So that those kind of things can happen, not necessarily in like a random like place, but like everyone's here already. You have plenty of time. You can hang out. You can play in the evening. You can play during the days you're not playing, and kind of let the community do its own thing.
But that's a whole new world.
It's a whole new world. And I
Whole
think
worlds.
if I were FFG, I'd probably shoot to break even on that event. Honestly, I don't think you're doing it for any reason other than to build hype and excitement and
community.
connect people in your own gaming universes. I think that's well enough for the long term.
And really to get a lot of games on stream so that people can watch them and do that whole thing.
And I'll be very curious to see what, because they keep changing worlds, right? They
Yes.
keep updating it. They split Star Wars out, and I'll be curious.
They're
to see what
certainly
they do.
paying
So
attention.
We're gonna get some questions really quick that are related.
Oh man, this is a long. We're
Yeah,
an
it's just
hour in.
we just get well. That's a little extra because the
I'm
anyways.
sorry.
Hey, don't say sorry. If you're still listening,
that's
they're
just
here.
that's just long.
First question is from Josh Keister on Twitter. He wants to know: do you see any FFG games getting to Magic level prize money tournaments? I mean,
No. Not officially.
Well, here's
I have
Well, like for
fire
prize
here.
money.
I have fire
I'll say
here.
this: the answer to the first question is definitely different than the answer to the second.
Yes,
question.
I would agree with that.
So the answer to the first question is absolutely
100%.
I hold on to the idea that FFG is essentially, in a lot of ways, getting in their own way when it comes to their games. It's like, how many people have we talked to at FFG, at back in the day at Plaid Hat, whoever it was? It's like, hey, Magic, and it's like, oh, never. Like, Magic is too crazy and big. We'll never compete in that space. Like, we're happy with what we've got, kind of a thing. And it's like, that's just not the right attitude to have. And I can't speak to FFG's attitude on that officially. I don't know. Maybe they have secret meetings about how to beat Magic. But somebody needs to like step it up and be like, we're going to be the next big game.
We're at least going to challenge
see,
it.
I
At
think-
least going to try.
I think for me, it's defining what does it mean to be as big as Magic. But the reality is like I don't. There's this assertion, and it's even kind of tied into this question that like to become as successful as Magic, there has to be these like big cash prize mega tournaments, and I just think that's wrong.
You see it right here.
I think the number of people that would play games like L5R or Thrones or
Destiny.
or Netrunner or X-Wing, and you go down the list, all these games is immense, and to me, it's not about. I don't think big prize tournaments is going to. It'll bring certain players out, but I think you could get a lot of people involved in these games.
Think bigger, think different than
100%.
that, right?
Well,
like,
it's
let's
gotta
not
be
just
different.
recycle the same 20-year-old ideas and assume that it's going to work.
People look at it, and this happens all the time, is that they see, well, what makes Magic so great? It's the prize money. But really, it's not. It's the great OP. It's the fantastic tournaments they run. It's the local store initiatives that they do. Like, this does not
easy entry into the
require...
game?
Yeah, easy entry into the game. This does not require giant cash prizes. This just requires, like, a concerted effort on the goal and hitting the goal.
And on it, like, they set out to create, as we've learned, like the competitive player with cash prizes and create a sport like type feel to it, and that worked for Magic.
It's good for a Vanguard.
Cool, like that's good. But to any industry, the first thing that worked is never the next thing that should be done by your company, right? Like, let's find out other ways that we can incentivize this. And from us being in the industry, like, I've been more motivated by 1,000 other things aside from cash. Like, creating cards is interesting. The L5R organized play, controlling the story is interesting. Having recognition in a world championship deck is interesting. Like, there are a number of ideas that can be utilized to like drive interest. Referral programs, like getting your friends engaged and getting special prizes for doing that. You can spread stuff like wildfire these days. We got the internet, for goodness sakes. Like, we can communicate at lightning speed with the entire world. I just don't think the thinking is on point yet.
It feels to me like, to use a metaphor, like an old lion who's been the leader of the pride for so long. And if you guys don't know, the way nature does it is eventually a lion gets challenged and then murdered, and then the new guy comes up.
Okay.
I think that's basically biologically accurate. But the thing is that there's all these young lions who are more powerful, more agile, more healthy than this old lion, but no one is challenging it because that's just the way that it is. And the second that it would become challenged, it's never had to react to that. Not for years and years and years to really fight off a competitor. I don't think Magic has legs. I would love someone even just to try.
Magic would get better. FFG would get better. Like, who knows? Versus system would get better. I don't know what it is.
I think for me, to answer the question simply, yes, I think an FFG game could get to that point. But the other half of this is, I don't think the goal should be to go after the same thing.
Yes,
right? Because for me, I think if you're wanting to have a big cash prize tournament game, that's going to be difficult to kind of unseat.
Yeah, that's the niche. I mean, you don't start trying to make $1 hamburgers, right? Like, that's already been done. The niche has been filled.
You're not going to bring it on to McDonald's.
Differently about this stuff. Yeah, like there's a niche, and right now I think there's a very large and various niches that Magic is not occupying that are just as large and just as much of a fast track to success.
All right, well,
someone's going to do it. We need the Zuckerberg of card games to come in here.
We need someone to just get in there and challenge, just try it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We're going to cut it there at one question. You can use the hashtag AskKevin to get your question answered right here on the show. Now we have a question for you. We'd love to see it in your answer in the comments below. And the question is, why do or don't you play in tournaments? Until next time, keep playing.